Hey, good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are here for another edition of the Astro Weather as my little demon cat cruises underneath my monitor and my camera and wants my attention. Hello, little demon cat. You gonna come up here today? Huh? You gonna grace us with your appearance? She's got a bit of the demon cat in her, I have to say. Last night she did something very, very cat-like. So very different than Jasper. Jasper is like Mr. Chill. He's just Mr. Chill. Peachy, you're a little high maintenance, aren't you? You're a little high maintenance. Well, you come up here. Come on. Come up here. You know you were in trouble. You know you were in trouble from last night. I'm not going to tell you what she did, but it was not good. How is everybody this morning? We got, man, I'm talking about the astral weather, but the terrestrial weather is incredibly challenging. We have our friends in Canada, in Calgary, dealing with all these fires, and we have just this absolutely dystopian climate, dystopian atmosphere coming down through the East Coast and New York City and Virginia Beach. And man, I mean, we have some gray skies here this morning in Texas, but last night we had a hell of a thunderstorm. It was so big, it knocked the power out here out in the country, and very intense, very, very intense. And sometimes there's a correlation between the actual terrestrial weather and the astro weather. So I may try to take a little bit of a stab at that today and see what kind of correlations we can pick up on. But why don't we start with the chart itself? I've got a really interesting star of the day today. Yesterday we had Prince. And people really loved Prince. I could have gone Kanye West today because it is his birthday, but I've done Kanye's chart so many times that it's somebody else's turn. You know, we're all about equity here and diversity. So we're gonna have a more diverse selection today. Can you believe that? More diverse than Kanye West? That's true. All right. So good news. We have the moon right here at 12 Aqua, which puts it in the Gemini decan, right? So it's a different, it's a 17, my bad. I got my morning eyes. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, let's zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, 17. So it still isn't the Gemini decan. By the time we get into tonight, that moon is going to shift into the Libran decan, which tends to be a bit better for relating, right? I mean, I feel like the Aquarius moon and the Libra decan has the potential of mutuality. In the Gemini decan, it's kind of nutty. It's kind of E. Jean Carroll territory. But it's still in a nice alignment with the sun. So we have a moon sun trine today. And that means that in general, the feelings and expression are much more in alignment today than they were over the past couple of days. When we had the in conjunct with the moon, and of course that moon Pluto conjunction, which was quite intense. And the sun keeps kind of creeping up on Juno, and I keep looking at this conjunction as the priming point for starting something new. Okay, so here we go. For all you want to be parents out there, if you want to have a child, and by the way, I think bringing a child into this world is a Promethean act. But if you were wanting to have a child, and let's say you were having a challenge having a child, I would look to the next few days to put that on your schedule with the Sun Juno conjunction. Just saying. And guess what? You might even have twins. But we do have that nice moon sun trine. So there is a bit more harmony in the sky today on some level, right? Like self and the expression of emotion. And in Gemini, again, there's a curiosity. There's also strange syncs. Today's the day of strange syncs with the moon in this degree and trining the Gemini sun. Now over here, of course, we have some very different things going on. We have Mercury squaring the moon. It's kind of moving away. And, that's a tough one, because Mercury in Taurus and it's conjunct Algol, and you want to get things out. You want to be able to speak to the heart of something. And we talked about this yesterday with the approach to Algol. And I think this is going to be a very interesting day for this whole idea of free speech and people essentially saying things that they need to say, and perhaps even suffering consequences as a result of that. But as Mercury moves closer into trine with Pluto, it's an irresistible force. And again, Taurus is a fixed sign, and we're dealing with the bull, and the bull is determined, right? The bull is very determined in terms of what it wants to either achieve or accomplish or acquire, right? So this is really interesting energy, and I think it's risk-taking energy, actually. And I don't think it's risk that doesn't pay off. I think it's risk that does pay off. And we're always tested in our lives. At least that's what I feel in my own experience. And this is a test of how you can speak up for what is important to you. I think it's kind of a big day for that. And it's also interesting that that Uranus, this is just an observation, that Uranus conjunct Tucker Carlson's sun in Taurus, and he basically did his first live stream on Twitter and had 65 million views. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, if I'm Fox News and I'm looking at that, I'm just looking around who to point a finger at, right? So that's a really interesting conjunction in Tucker Carlson's chart. I think Mercury is also conjunct his sun when he kind of launched his new platform. And again, I think what we're going to see is with Carlson in that space, more people kind of going off on that path, and people that are kind of legacy media is dead. I mean, CNN just fired its CEO, right? It's dead. And that means that the apparatus of the state to control the messaging of our times is going away. And think about that for a moment. So people are going to, and they already have, they're decoupling from cable. And when they decouple from cable, that is going to be huge, huge. Think of all the advertising dollars that go into cable. And that's happening now, right? This is even part of the Mercury conjunction with Algol. It's like, what do you do when you get rid of cable? You cut the cord. And when you cut the cord, that's also a bit of a metaphor for cutting the rope that you're hanging from. So this is a really interesting time. And this is one of those mundane aspects or global aspects where we can actually see something new begin to emerge. Now, don't underestimate the fact that there are going to be people that will be canceling Fox Extra, or whatever the fuck it is. CNN is already down the toilet. So these news organizations, these news operations, they're let me see, on that, even on the non-legacy side, you had Jamel Hill getting cut by Spotify. Let's see, what's her name? Will Smith's Jada Pinkett Smith, her Red Table show got canceled. So it's interesting to see how the legacy media has only been able to keep these shows afloat for a period of time, and now the air is being deflated from them. So this is really a total win here. We're seeing this with this Mercury conjunction with Uranus over the past week, and don't think that people aren't noticing. Right. So when the advertising dollars, as people decouple from cable, that's going to affect a lot of other institutions that are associated and attached to cable in general, like Disney, ESPN, who are cutting people right and left. Right. So this is really, when I say it's an interesting time, I'm not talking about just in general. I'm talking about like right now. We're really watching a media revolution before our very eyes. And here with the trine to Pluto, it's actually paying off, right? Now, there's always a a risk, because the people with the legacy media may say, well, this is getting a bit too legacy media is connected to legacy pharma, which is connected to legacy agri, which is connected to all the legacy systems. And when we begin to unplug from one system, it has a ripple effect into these other systems. And when that happens, the people that control those systems get very proprietary, and they're like, well, they're pulling the plug. Well, maybe it's our time to pull the plug. So watch things accelerate rapidly here. When Mercury moves into Gemini, and that's just in 5 days, you're going to see things really accelerate in terms of both on the one hand, the proliferation of new media and the potential for new media and new voices. Because you're looking, even somebody like, and I know I'm kind of talking shop here, but like Shannon Sharp, who has been on Fox Sports for the last 5 or 6 years with Skip Bayless, he's leaving, and he's starting his own podcast. And he's not really relevant to a lot of the things that we're talking about in terms of content that you might be interested in, but it's relevant in the sense that he's moving off into the platform that I'm on right now for all intents and purposes. So this is a big deal and a big time, and it's hard to understand kind of where we are because we're in the midst of it, right? It's kind of like the fish doesn't realize that it's living in the fishbowl, but it is. And so we don't really understand or notice this really monumental change that we're experiencing right now. And I think it's a really good change. The challenge with the proliferation of independent media is that there's so much of it that it's almost overwhelmed, right? You could stay glued to your TV and watch YouTube for 24 hours a day just to absorb all this information. And some people do, right? I go through these stretches where I'm just consuming lots of media because, number one, it's easier. I can just download a bunch of stuff in my head and, put it in and really catch up on gaps in my understanding of certain epochs and periods of history, which is really what I like to do. And I think that there's some value in that. The downside is it's just another sort of mind suck, but we're in it right now. And today is one of those days. Today is one of those kind of give me liberty or give me death days, with Mercury making a very strong statement here at 25 Algol. And you might even see somebody being penalized for free speech. What's interesting here is that Mercury at this degree is conjunct Trump's midheaven. So keep your eye on Trump and any announcements today around Trump. There's been talk that he would be indicted in Georgia, or that Merrick Garland would indict him. I would not be surprised if today is that day, or they may lower the boom tomorrow at 26 Taurus, as it's really conjunct Algol on his midheaven. So keep your eye on Trump. Let's get down here to some of these Leo planets. So Venus is still trailing here, but we do have this Venus-Mars conjunction. Well, it was interesting. Yesterday I had 2 clients, and they were both men, and they had really similar attributes in their chart. One was Libra rising 1 degree, the other was Libra rising 2 degrees. They both had Mars in Aries. Very interesting in terms of kind of this happens to me sometimes when well, not just sometimes, actually probably about once a week. Well, I'll have one day where there are these readings that they come in like sets of waves. But the thing that really grabbed me yesterday is one of my clients had the Venus-Mars conjunction in the sign of Aries, right? So we have a Venus-Mars conjunction in Leo. A couple of days ago, what did I have? Laurie Anderson, Venus-Mars conjunction as well. So the Venus-Mars conjunction is one of those things that fascinate me because it's almost Gemini-like in terms of its composition, right? You're blending the masculine with the feminine here. And as Venus gets closer to Mars, we're getting closer to this whole idea of binary, non-binary, right? So it'll be very interesting to see what happens when Venus and Mars are conjunct and how they are reflected in this particular month that we're in, right? It'd be very interesting. And Yeah, I've been watching this whole struggle, and well, I wouldn't call it a struggle, but the political debate around what is a man, what is a woman, and transgender athletes in sports. And Venus is going to overtake Mars, right? And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in terms of public opinion when Venus kind of conjuncts Mars and then moves beyond it right now. And in some ways, we have kind of a, well, I'd be considered a chauvinist with the natural order of Mars ahead of Venus. But I feel like we're going to see a reshuffling of the deck when Venus conjuncts Mars and then moves in front of it. And it'll be almost like an inversion of the dominant themes that we're experiencing, at least right now. And I think that also coincides with Pluto's retrograde back into Capricorn. And I've talked about this before, where when Pluto went into Aquarius, I said it would be like putting your head into a portal of a different world. And it's exactly what happened. So there will be some degree of a return to what we might consider normalcy. But again, there's going to be a different emphasis with Pluto at that point. And it's not really about governance right now. And it will be, but it's been a different emphasis of Pluto altogether. So this is interesting energy today. And you're looking at also equality and balance in your relationships, like who does what, who cleans what, or who cooks what, or who does what, or who brings the bacon home. And as Venus moves closer to Mars, there's actually, I believe, more of a chance of a symbiosis with these two energies coming together. And also with Chiron here in Aries, we're getting really close to the Chiron return to the United States. And it'll hit 20 and it'll retrograde, but that's a big moment for Chiron. I might cover that on Sunday night show, because I think I could devote a whole show to that. I think it's worthwhile. So again, in terms of relationships, the synergy and the synthesis of the masculine and the feminine and coming together, I think, has great potential. Great potential. Now there is kind of an ongoing square with Jupiter, excuse me, with Mars and Leo, the expression of the will and the royal eye in Leo. Yeah, you have to watch out for demands, right? The demands of others, or the demands of even your own self in the lives of others. Because I think this could be a little tyrannical, especially with Venus kind of in the mix, right? You have to keep an eye on making sure that your demands and your ego are a little in check here. What else do we have? Venus is still in trine with Neptune, which I like. I love Venus-Neptune trines. There's the potential for just blending easily with other people, even though we're out of element here. And I think it matters. Venus and Leo, again, has at times maybe a sense of entitlement in relationship, or entitlement in terms of material possessions. But with the trine with Neptune, it's sort of mellowed out. It's cut, as they say on the streets. So there's a nice blend of having your own self-interest met, but at the same time being open and empathic towards other people. In spite of these hard T-squares, I like today. I think there's some really interesting energy today. Mars is going to be moving closer into a square with Uranus. It's just hitting that square now, that 10-degree orb. We have to pay attention to that. That'll be a very significant square as it approaches. And Pallas is already squaring Uranus. What's really interesting is the fact that this whole idea of conspiracy theorists are really like mainstream now. And to me, that is like Pallas squaring Uranus, and Pallas being all about pattern recognition, and the Uranus square is disruptive. So people that have been kind of on the beat for a while, or in many ways, are being proven correct. It's all just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. All right. What do I mean by that? It's a matter of time before things get fleshed out. Today's star of the day brought to you by robertphoenix.com is kind of a two-parter. You can't have one without the other. You can't have the peanut butter without the jelly. So today's star of the day. Here she is, Barbara Bush. Barbara Bush is your star of the day. Look, she's even got a star on her head. The 5-pointed star, the star of man, an H. Of course, this is for her beloved Houston Astros, clad in the orange and blue. You know, I'm not really interested in this chart very much, to be honest with you. There's a reason why she's a star of the day, because we're going to talk about something a little bit different than just her chart. However, that said, she does have some interesting things going on. You know, Sagittarius rising. Do you remember the comment she made about, oh, why should I think about these horrible things so they can get in the way of my beautiful thoughts, or whatever the fuck she said? To me, that's very Sag rising, right? I think it has something to do with like poverty or race or something along those lines. Anyway, look at her seventh house. You know, her husband, Georgie Porgy, is somewhere in here. They're both Geminis, which is, I think, fairly interesting, but maybe not uncommon. Two Geminis understand each other like no other. I'm not really interested in this chart per se, although Neptune will play a role here because it gets into the story that we're going to talk about. Of course, the ninth house being connected to things like foreign countries, foreign places, big spaces, religion, law, and philosophy. So pay attention to Neptune, all right? Because it's going to play a little bit of a role here. Why am I bringing up Barbara Bush? Well, there's been a story going around for quite a while that Barbara Bush is the daughter of Aleister Crowley. And I remember actually writing about this 2008, 2009. So this has been out in the public square for quite a while. So I decided to kind of put their charts together here and just see, you know, what do they have in common? You know, is there any way that we can maybe look at the fact that these two are actually related? And so the timing around this, here's the story around it. Apparently, Barbara Bush's mother was living in Paris, and she was sharing an apartment with a friend of hers who's an American. And there was an American writer in this apartment in Paris, and his roommate was Aleister Crowley. So no, I think that they had their own pad, but there was a lot of commingling going on here, right? So the math actually works out. If you look at Barbara Bush's mother and her stay in Paris, and then her pregnancy, when it really is roughly about a 9-month period when she comes back and has the little moon child here. So remember, I was talking about Neptune, ninth house, right? So this is Barbara Bush on the outside, and this is Aleister Crowley on the inside. So what can we determine from this? Well, they both have Chiron in Aries, which is interesting. And of course, today we have Chiron in Aries. So we have a triple Chiron in Aries. And so they match, right? Their Chirons match. I think there's a story here, right? This is one of those things where with astrological fingerprints, there's a match. Okay, here's Crowley's moon. And of course, you know, the title here is Moonchild. And this is Barbara Bush's Uranus conjunct his moon. Where's his moon? In the 8th house. I'm sorry. No, that's 9th house. My bad. Part of fortune in the 8th house. So nonetheless, like the moon in the 8th house, the moon is a big deal for Crowley, right? A very big deal for Crowley. So this would be radical conception. Radical conception. All right, that makes some sense here. But what I'm really, really interested in with this chart, in terms of perhaps proving my thesis that she is the daughter of Aleister Crowley, is her true node. That's her true node in Leo, which is 1 degree off of his ascendant. Right there, right? It's like, oh, interesting. There's a connection here. There's a connection with self and there's a connection with her true north in this lifetime. This is like a telomere connecting one being to another. And then over here, this is really interesting. We have the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in her fourth house, right? Her Saturn conjunct his Jupiter in his fourth house. My bad. That's his fourth house. And again, we have the meeting of these kind of celestial titans. And did she originate from the cradle of Aleister Crowley's fourth house? I think this is a really interesting chart. Coming over here, we have his Mars, which is in Capricorn, and she's got that Moon Jupiter conjunction with his Mars. This is the masculine principle. I think this is a fit. I would say, based on, and even over here, right? Like the occulted aspect of Pluto and Mars and Black Moon Lilith hidden in his 12th house, I think it's quite interesting as well. Right? Because Pluto and Mars are all about generation. This is the generative principle, and it is occulted, and it is in his 12th house. So it's hidden, secret. There you go. I would say yes. Yes. And for me, the markers are the true node conjunct the mid-house, the ascendant, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in the fourth house. And for her, it would be his Jupiter conjunct her Saturn, right there, bang, right on the cusp of her 12th house. Let's see, MC, love you, 12th house. And then over here, the generative principle, masculine Mars, Jupiter, Moon, and then the kind of the radical conception with Uranus and the Moon, and happening quickly, right? Very interesting. And then the two chirons, matching chirons. I think this is really the fingerprint right here. These two Chiron and Aries. All right, so there's your star of the day, or stars of the day. Barbara Bush, Aleister Crowley. And that's it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out and having a little hit of the Astro Weather. We'll be over on 15 Minutes of Flame. I'll be deconstructing some media today from the past, and I think you'll enjoy it. At the very least, it'll be entertaining. And that's over on my website, 15minutesofflame.com. And if you're interested in CBD, I've got the CBD for you. It is True Hemp Science. Here's your visual, one of their fine bottles. In fact, I'm going to take some right now. I'm going to take a little bit of 19 right now. I'm going to dose up right here, so you can see that nice, clear, amber. The taste of potency on your tongue. True Hemp Science. If you want to go there and get some of the best hemp products or CBD products that you can avail yourself of on the internet, I urge you to go there. It's a great addition to your everyday regimen. And if you spend $100 more, type in 15MINS. That's 15MINS. When you check out, you get free product. So, what Chris does is he has these small vials, and sometimes he'll put some CBD in a small vial, label it, and tell you what you get. So you get to try something else, and you might get a couple of gummies in there. So it's a nice little treat on top of your order. $150 or more gets you free shipping. Always a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right, Chattaria, love you. Everybody else, love you too. And have a great day. And we'll see you over on the 15 minute side. Take care. Bye for now.